the judges. Okay, judges, it's all yours.
Hello, everybody. Glad to see you here, and thank you for staying late so that we can follow up on this. We'd really like to hear from you. I'll introduce myself, and my colleagues will do the same, and then we'll ask you to introduce yourselves, and then I'll read the question, and off we'll go, okay? My name is Candida Steele, and I'm retired as a judge on the U.S. Civilian Board of Contract Appeals. I handled federal government contract disputes around the country, and I've been judging for We the People for about 20 years now, and I couldn't do what you all do. So congratulations, and I'm looking forward to hearing your speeches. Richard?
My name is Richard Leiter. I'm a professor and director of the Law Library at the University of Nebraska College of Law in Lincoln, Nebraska. I've been judging We the People competitions on the state level for about 15 years. This is my first time in the big show, and I'm happy to be here and look forward to hearing from you.
My name is Kurt Mabus. I'm a Lieutenant Colonel, United States Air Force JAG Corps, currently stationed in Colorado and teach law at the Air Force Academy.
Great. And could you tell us who you all are, please?
Can y'all hear me? Okay, that's a relief. I'm Grant Van Patten. I'm a senior at Wilson Hall High School.
My name is Miller Jones. I'm also a senior at Wilson Hall.
Okay.
My name is Alexis Jaffe, and I'm a junior at Wilson Hall.
It sounds as if I just lost you.
We still have you, Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds as if, are you online now, Alexis? As well as on your phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Do we need to have the phone going? Can you hear us okay on your computer?
The phone's the only way we can get audio from Alexis, so we have to roll with it.
That's fine with me. I'm sorry. I don't mean to make any difficulty.
No problem.
We hear you double when you're speaking on the phone. So I'll go ahead and read the question. A result of the decision in Wisconsin versus Yoder is that any parent guardian can refuse to let their child go to school beyond the 8th grade or learn about a subject by saying it's against their religious beliefs, quoting the Amish Heritage Foundation. Do you agree or disagree with this result of the decision? Why or why not? What words, if any, are found in the US Constitution or in state constitutions that protect the right to an education? And how have courts balanced religious beliefs with other rights? You may begin.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and start us off with some background for the case. So a Wisconsin law said that all children had to go to school until the age of 16, and this led to the case of Wisconsin versus Yoder. The Miller, Yoder, and Yutzi families were Amish families who believed that making their children attend school past the 8th grade went against their religious beliefs. Wisconsin filed this case against the families after their school district administration complained and fined the families. The ruling reflects the free exercise clause of the First Amendment. I agree with the result of this decision. I believe that the court made the correct decision because of the First Amendment. The First Amendment clearly states that citizens have the right to a freedom of religion. This freedom is one of the core principles that Americans cherish. The First Amendment freedoms are what separate America from many other countries. American citizens know the freedoms they have and they can't be taken away. It comforts citizens and encourages them to do what is right. If the court ruled in a different way, then this amendment would have been devalued. The freedom of religion is extremely important to all Americans. Religion is more important to most people than education. Because of this, the court normally sides with protecting religion. Since all religions are different, one religion might say one thing about education and one say a completely different thing. As long as there's no danger or harm caused, the freedom of religion should always be protected. Other cases where the courts protected the freedom of religion are Engel versus Vitale and Lee versus Wiseman. In Engel versus Vitale, the court ruled that it was illegal to pray at public schools. While this might sound like a restriction of freedom of religion, I believe that it protects it because it prevents our country from establishing one religion. This set the precedent that was soon followed in Abington versus Shemp 1 year later. In Lee versus Weissman, the court ruled that it was illegal to pray at public school graduation. These cases set restrictions on religious activities and protected the freedom of religion because they didn't let our country establish one religion over another. In Wisconsin versus Yoder, the Amish parents did not want their children in school past 8th grade due to religious beliefs. Since it caused no harm or danger, the courts made the correct decision in allowing them to leave school.
Okay, anyone else joining? Are we ready for questions?
The U.S. Constitution protects the right to an education through the 14th Amendment. The Equal Protection Clause protects the rights of access to free public school for all United States children by stating that a state may not deny any person within its jurisdiction to equal protection of the laws. These educational rights are essential to protect the future of our country and success of our future generations.
All right.
Are you muted? Can't hear you.
I'm not gonna have much time to say this, so I'm gonna have to speak on this. But hear me?
I think it's just a delay.
That now we've lost him. There he is.
All right. I realize I'm not gonna have much time to say this, so I'm just gonna try to get through it as fast as I can.
Go ahead.
But
You have 45 seconds. You have 45 seconds.
But you're frozen.
all right.
We're not hearing you.
So how have the courts found?
Graham, try turning off your video and just your audio. That should reduce the transmission a little bit and give you better audio.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and for this last minute, you can finish up what you need to say.
Okay. I'm so sorry for all the things that are happening. But so basically, how have the courts balanced religious beliefs with other rights? My short answer would be through their rulings. So it's a tricky act to try and balance religion with other rights in our country because, obviously our country has been built on the protection of religion with the First Amendment. There's a very thin line there that you can't cross where it interferes with other rights. So like in the case of Masterpiece Cake Shop versus Colorado, basically in this case, a gay couple wanted to go buy a cake from a baker. The baker said he wasn't going to do it because of his religion. Well, on one side, you have a gay couple who thinks that might be discrimination because what right does the baker have to not bake for them? But on the other hand, you have the baker who claims that because of the free exercise clause, it's perfectly fine for him to not bake them this cake, in which the courts actually ruled with the baker here. But on the opposite, you also have cases like Roe versus Wade where.
Time.
Gotcha.
Good job, Graham. Thank you.
Well, I'm trying my best. Yeah.
You're doing fine. So, well, why don't we start with a basic question here? What does the separation of church and state mean?
All right, I guess I can just answer that one.
Yep.
So the separation of church and state, it's very tricky because, you had America, which was technically, founded on religion and religious beliefs, but it's basically saying that you can't have the church and the government intertwined. Those kind of have to be separate things. So like let's think of like, you know, Europe and like the Catholic Church. A lot of the times the Catholic Church was basically like the central government in those countries. And that's basically like the opposite of what we're trying to get at in America, where, yeah, and it's tough because, yeah, there are some rulings where religion kind of comes into play, but ultimately you can't make rulings based off of just religion, because obviously we all have different religions, and that's just not the way that our country was built. So that's kind of the way I would answer that.
Okay, anybody else? Anything to add?
To go back to the your opening piece and explore the Yoder case just a little bit. I'd like to ask the question, you know, how should a student's right to an education be weighed against a parent's religious beliefs?
That's a really interesting look into that case. I think that I think the student should definitely have the choice there, because I think that kind of goes in back into the religion thing where they should have a choice of their religion. So if they don't value that religious belief to where they think they need to be out of school, then I think they should be able to remain in school over their parents' wishes.
Do you know if they asked the student in that case in Yoder?
I'm not sure of that.
When would you say that the interest of the students kicks in again vis-a-vis the parents' rights of belief? At what age or when?
I think a good time may be the entry into high school, just because you're supposed to have a certain level of maturity and maybe have some responsibility over your actions over like a lower school student shouldn't have as much say in that.
Well, and I think like with the Amish religion, like around 8th grade is when they're really told and raised to like take up the mantle and start like doing work and start like really contributing to their society. So to a point, like I don't think that the Amish student could be like wanting an education, because if they've grown up in this Amish community their entire life, I'm pretty sure that they would be almost in a sense like brainwashed, but like they would want to, they would be ready to work and they would be ready to embrace Amish society at that point.
So during the opening, I'll call him Justice Miller, because he came up with a test for how to balance free exercise. And he said, unless there's no harm or danger. So I want to have an idea of what that means. What type of harm or danger could that be? And does everybody agree that that's the right test in a free exercise clause case?
The comes to my mind first whenever you think of that is, I think you can't just say the freedom of religion gives you an excuse to do anything, because I think once you commit a crime or commit a violent action against someone around those lines, or like any crime, you can't just say, well, my religion condones this, so it's okay, and use that as an excuse to do whatever you want, basically.
All right, I have a follow-up, but I know Alexis is trying to get on, so please go.
Okay, sorry. I feel like the real danger happens when the parents become more important than the child, because a parent can control their life, but a child can't control the future of their life. So eventually that child's gonna have its own goals. And if a child doesn't necessarily want to stay in the Amish society forever, then the child's wants and needs should be respected. So I believe that the real danger is when someone is overshadowing someone else, because everybody deserves a say in the situation.
Okay. So were you going to ask a question then, Kurt?
Sure, happy to. So because one of my follow-ups is, what if you have a religious tenant that requires the violation of a law? And so we establish, no drug use, but then the Rastafarians, as part of their religious tenets, want to use drugs. How do you balance that with the free exercise clause?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's tough, and I don't really think I could completely give you an answer where you would, be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's what I was looking for. But I mean, yeah, like I know there are religions where like, cannibalism is, part of their religion, and obviously like you can't look at that and say, oh, well, since that's part of their religion, they should be able to do that. I think it's just, you have separation of church and state, and you have the laws, and obviously there are some situations like the Wisconsin versus Yoder where you're supposed to go to school, but the Amish religion permits that. It's honestly just kind of up to the courts at that point, because the courts, their job is to interpret the Constitution, interpret the law. So I think at that point, with the drugs and even the cannibalism and things like that, it's just up to the courts to interpret it, and we just have to trust in the highest court of the land and the people that we've put in those positions. So.
Following up what Graham said there, I think agreeing with him, that may be a situation where you can't really give a right answer, and it may just be you have to look at every circumstance in its own way, in its own kind of. There could be different examples and different circumstances with everything that you can look at.
Well, why don't we look at something quickly current? What do you think about the government requiring vaccinations to get into school? You think the COVID vaccination should be a passport back to school? Do you need to have taken it?
Yeah, so that is a very good question, and there are very, very different views all across, especially where I live. But I think with the COVID vaccination, there are worries and there are doubts, but when it comes down to safety, especially with something as important as school, and kids need their education, I think it's just safety. So I think you should require vaccinations. So.
Great. On that note, we've hit time. And Richard, do you want to start?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I realize that you guys have been working under a little handicap of technical difficulties, and my sympathies go with you. It's tough to argue these things when everything is going perfectly well. When you're having to fight with your computers and with your medium, it just makes it all the more difficult. So having said that, I reading between the lines and reading between the technical difficulties, I think you should all be very proud of yourselves. You obviously have studied the material and you know what you're talking about. I'd match you up against the average person on the street, any city in the country, in terms of your knowledge of the Constitution. The average person just doesn't know anything. And I'm probably not even overstating it. So thank you very much for your presentation. Keep up the good work.
Great. Kurt?
Yeah, I agree. You had some good breadth and some good depth, and you pulled on some cases in the introduction, your opening statements. I encourage you to use those to your advantage later when we're having our own conversation. Pull in some more cases and think about what has the court done in these certain situations, and what can I use that to my advantage for? Because you obviously have it there. You can tell from your opening statement, you know what you're talking about, and so just use that to throw that extra dart. So wonderful job.
Great. Thank you all so much. You did a nice job, and it was a pleasure listening to you. What I'm as a follow-up, I certainly agree with my colleagues, but I also am really happy for you all to have had this experience, because I know it's going to make wonderful citizens out of you. And the only thing I'd suggest is if you've really been interested in it, you might want to go further. You might think about going to law school. You might think about representing us in state government or local government. And I hope you've been inspired. And if not, I hope you've had a good time anyway. At least you've had a chance to talk to each other. And I'm sorry for the glitches, but you've handled them well. And that's part of the growing up process too. So it's been a pleasure for us to talk with you, and have a great time and talk to you soon. The only thing that I would like to add is, I don't remember if it comes up tomorrow, what questions you're going to be dealing with tomorrow. If there is, just be careful in reading the question, that you understand what it's asking. The question here with Yoder, the quote was from somebody opposed to Yoder. And just keep in mind for preparing tomorrow which viewpoint the question is coming from. But you did a great job, and I hope you've had a good time, because you managed to overcome all of the things that fate's thrown in your way. So thank you for
Let me thank the judges on behalf of our school for working with us and letting these kids have a chance. And real quickly, Judge Mavis, I don't know, we have a colleague of yours who is a graduate of our school, Dr. Joel Kaufman, in the computer science department. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them or not, but Wilson Hall graduate, who's a professor at the Air Force Academy as well. So anyway,
Wonderful.
thanks, Joel. I'm sorry.
No, I just said that's wonderful. I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, so if you see Dr. Kaufman around, tell him his school was at the national finals, and he'll go crazy, knowing Joel. Thank you though.
Absolutely.
great.